Jim Jones' effort to mock Nas totally backfired. Thus, Nas lost no time in retaliating. Thus, the entire discussion between Nas and Jim Jones began when Jim appeared on the Joe and Jada show and spoke boldly. Jim claimed that although he was once a huge fan of Nas, he now believes that his own music, his Billboard run, and his appeal to younger audiences far surpass Nas.
To the Billboard entries, pull up Nas Billboard entries. He's just son.
No, but he knows.
My son can't tell you one Nas record.
Additionally, social media went so far as to draw attention to the debate and step in to protect Nas's reputation. However, it's amusing how far this has come when you consider that a few weeks ago, a clip from the Don't Quote Me podcast brought the entire Jim Jones versus Nas situation back to life. According to a 22-year-old New Jersey college student, Jim Jones had a greater impact on his generation than Nas. The video went viral on social media and rekindled the hip-hop generational argument. This is what was spoken throughout the meeting.
Champagne, Summer in Miami, that's a classic.
If I Rule the World, how's that comparable to those songs you just said?
I'm 22. Every Nas song that my man's MJ played, we said we heard that from what, Dub?
2K.
2K. Those songs are in the video game.
Okay.
I have never in my life said at a party, yo, throwing that Nas right now. If you did top 3 influential people regarding dressing.
And that alone prompted Jim to reply on the Joe and Jada show. He was reasonable, though, and admitted that he had previously looked up to Nas, but had since found path. Now that we're back, the rivalry between Nas and Jim Jones is still very much alive. However, this is not their first conflict. If you've spent enough time outside, we'll recall the tension in the mid-2000s when Dipset was rolling with Jay-Z and Rockefeller during the height of the Nas vs. Hob period. Soon after, Jim Jones entered the fray, and what had begun as adoration quickly escalated into antagonism. Jones was heard saying outrageous things in interviews, such as F Nez. I don't give about Nez. He's a rapper that just lost his pizzazz. Nas, in the meantime, was dismissing guys like Jim without ever getting his hands dirty. Here's the video from 2005 where Nas let his fans speak for him by bringing up Jim Jones's name. There were no name drops or diss tracks, just subtle flexes. That made it obvious you weren't in my league. Who exactly is a Jim Jones-like person?
Like a Jim Jones, I respect you getting your money. You're like, exactly.
That energy remained constant. In the present, Jim's back is pressing at the same angle, but louder. Before it could subside, he intensified his attack on Shannon Sharpe's Nightcap podcast. Asking him whether he truly is a better rapper than Nas, Jim refused to back down at all and declared that he would run circles around Nas. I'll circumnavigate Nas.
I will run circles around Nas rapping right. I will run circles around Nas rapping right now.
That triggered it. Shannon disparaged Jim by claiming that his podcast is the largest one he has ever participated in. The largest podcast you have ever participated in.
This the biggest podcast you ever been on.
Name one Nas record.
This the biggest podcast you ever been on. Do you know what podcast you been on?
Regarding Nas, he still refuses to speak or pay any attention to this situation. He is aware that Jim Jones wants just that. Let's be honest, Nas has spent the last few years working with Hit Boy, performing at sold-out events and releasing Grammy-winning music. The piece speaks louder than any retort. And his clapback is that quiet. Nas, being mute as Jim talks himself into circles, is the legacy talking, according to anybody familiar with the culture. Mary has been after remaining silent for years. Amori is now addressing claims that Beyoncé blackballed her after stealing her sound and preventing her from advancing in her career. In a recent interview with Joe Rogan, Amory finally discussed the parallels to Beyoncé. Additionally, even though she didn't accuse her of anything specifically, the manner in which she discussed her job troubles has caused some to connect the dots.
What were your true feelings when he ended up giving Beyonce that song that they said that she wanted to talk about?
Yeah.
The main point of contention has always been the parallels between Beyoncé's Crazy in Love and Amori's smash song One Thing. For years, there have been accusations that Jay-Z stole the song for Beyoncé after producer Rich Harrison first created it for Amory. Amory has never been one to openly criticize others. And during her appearance on Joe Rogan's program, she stated that she was unsure if the tale was accurate. Regarding the parallels, she attributed it to the fact that Rich Harrison produced both songs.
Yeah, I didn't hear all these stories.
No, I've heard everything. Are you shitting me?
Okay.
Of course
girl,
you've
I
heard
didn't.
stories.
I really didn't hear the stories about that particular song. No, I didn't hear it. Like, I didn't hear anything about it. But a lot of people would be like, "Wait, that's not your record. Why did he give that record to you?" And I'm like, he never played that record for me. I mean, it's really simple. It's like we did the first album, right? And after the first album came out, it made a lot of noise, and people really loved that album.
Amory did, however, acknowledge that Jay-Z liked her initial album, which some fans saw as proof that Jay had appropriated Mary's sound for Beyoncé.
And Jay loved the album too. Like Jay-Z loved the first album.
However, this is the reason why some fans believe Amar is being overly kind and withholding the full truth. Around the same period, Amar rose to prominence. It's difficult to imagine that Beyoncé ever had difficulties going solo, but it wasn't. Simple. She needed that one huge hit to make her breakthrough. And that song naturally turned out to be Crazy in Love, including Jay-Z. Beyoncé was attempting to go solo after Destiny's Child. However, it didn't take long for fans to notice that Rich Harrison co-wrote and produced Crazy in Love, and that the song and music video shared some striking parallels with Thing. Thus, certain parallels were anticipated. However, things get more complicated here. Several industry sources claim that Beyoncé was incensed when Jay-Z remixed One Thing, and she persuaded him to separate Rich Harrison from Amory. Jaguar Wright even asserted that Beyoncé was resolved to seize the opportunity and eliminate any competition once Aaliyah died, leaving room for the next major R&B princess. Jaguar also claims that Jay-Z snatched Rich Harrison from Amory for that reason. Regardless of the veracity of the story, Amory left the music business for she understood that you needed to stomp on others to succeed, and unlike some of her rivals, she wasn't thirsty for fame, since she understood she didn't need music to succeed. Amory, who is intelligent and well-educated, put her English degree to use and concentrated on writing after quitting the profession. She launched book club after her book Because You Love to Hate Me became a bestseller in 2017. In a recent interview with Tamron Hall, Amory talked candidly about all of and how she found contentment and success outside of the music industry. Amory claimed that she initially pursued music as a creative outlet, but soon realized that, as a woman in the field, there were expectations that were unrelated to the art.
I mean, you have so many female artists, and you will see a lot of female artists get, for instance, lots of advertisements, and they'll be on certain magazines, and they have a certain thing that men don't have. But a lot of people who make a lot of the decisions in the industry are men, and that's not necessarily a bad thing always, but when people come in with what they expect of women, it's very much like singing like I told you to do it, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, singing like I told you.
And so when you write your own music and you have your own vision, I think it can be a little jarring for some people. And for me, I never went into it to just do the magazine stuff. Actually, that was the stuff I just was like, you have to do this in order to create.
Amory, however, stated unequivocally that she had no regrets about leaving the field.